In this video, we will learn how we can represent a discrete time signal. A discrete time signal can be represented in two ways. These two methods are called the sequential method and the graphical method. First, we will learn what the sequential method of representing a discrete time signal is. In the sequential method, a discrete time signal is represented like an array or a list. You can see an upward directed arrow that shows that 3 is the magnitude of the signal when n is equal to 0. This arrow indicates that the sample at time interval 0 has a magnitude of 3. The samples on the right side of this arrow represent the positive time points, while the samples on the left side represent the negative time points. So the value of the signal at n equals 0 is 3. These are the samples at positive time points, and those on the left are the samples at negative time points. Now, let us move to the graphical method. In the graphical method, we represent the same discrete time signal on a graph. This graph contains both negative and positive time points. The values of n range from -4 to +4. This is the same signal we saw in the sequential representation. At n equals 0, the magnitude of the signal is 3. We can confirm this by looking at the plot. At time point 0, the amplitude is 3. At n equals 1, the amplitude is 2. At n equals 2, it is again 2. At n equals 3, it is -2, which means the amplitude is -2. At n equals 4, the amplitude becomes +1. Similarly, at n equals -1, the amplitude is -2, and at n equals -2, it is also -2. At n equals -3, the amplitude is +1, and at n equals -4, the amplitude becomes +2. So, this is the graphical representation of the same discrete time signal we saw earlier in the sequential representation. Therefore, the sequential method and the graphical method represent the same signal in two different ways. In this course, we will use the graphical representation of discrete time signals for better understanding. Now, let us move on to the concept of the convolution sum, or simply what is convolution. According to the definition, the response of the convolution sum y of n for two input signals, x1 of n and x2 of n, is defined by a specific equation. It means that after performing convolution, we obtain y of n, which is the output sequence resulting from the two input signals x1 of n and x2 of n. The mathematical formulation of this definition includes the convolution operator, which looks like an asterisk symbol enclosed in a circle. This symbol represents convolution between two discrete time signals x1 of n and x2 of n. According to the equation, when we convolve x1 of n and x2 of n, we obtain the output signal y of n. An important point to note is that x2 of n is the second signal in the convolution process and is often called the kernel or the filter. The signal x1 of n is the first signal. In order to perform convolution, we always need at least two signals. Now, the key idea here is that when x1 of n and x2 of n are convolved, they produce an output sequence y of n. One might ask, can we simply add x1 of n and x2 of n or perform some other operation to obtain y of n? The answer is that convolution is unique because it follows a specific set of 4 steps. These steps are flipping, also called folding, shifting, multiplying x1 of n and x2 of n, and finally adding the results of these multiplications. These 4 steps are necessary to perform convolution. The flipping and shifting steps are applied only to x2 of n, which is the kernel or the filter. The flipping step is performed once at the start of the convolution process. After flipping x2 of n, we perform shifting of the kernel. Once the kernel is flipped and shifted, we multiply it with x1 of n and then add all the multiplication results. You will understand these steps more clearly when we solve a numerical example later in this lecture. Now, the equation that we saw earlier shows that x1 of n and x2 of n are convolved to produce y of n. There is another way to express this convolution equation, which shows how to perform convolution in a more detailed way. In this equation, you can see that x2 of n is shifted, as indicated by the term x2 of n minus k. As mentioned earlier, flipping and shifting are only done with x2 of n, while x1 of n remains unchanged. Here, the variable k represents the amount of shift. From the previous section, where we learned about shifting and delaying signals, we know that n minus k represents a time delay by k units. The limits of k go from 0 to n minus 1. When k is equal to 0, there is no shift, meaning x2 of n is in its original position. When k is equal to 1, the signal x2 of n is shifted 1 unit to the right. These limits tell us how many times x2 of n should be shifted so that it can be multiplied with x1 of n, and the products can be added together. The expression x1 of k multiplied by x2 of n minus k shows that we multiply x1 of n with a shifted version of x2 of n, not with the original unshifted kernel. After performing the multiplication, we add all the resulting values from k equals 0 to n minus 1. This represents the complete mathematical form of the convolution kernel, and it will become clearer as we go through the numerical example of convolution in the upcoming slides. Once again, remember that x2 of n is the kernel or the filter used in the convolution process. Let us quickly recap the important steps of convolution. The first steps are flipping, also called folding, and shifting. We perform flipping and folding only with the kernel, that is x2. After that, we multiply the shifted kernel x2 with x1, and finally, we add all the multiplication results to get the output. This final addition gives us the convolution result after multiplying x1 with the shifted versions of x2. Up to this point, we have understood convolution mathematically. Convolution is one of those topics that is best explained with equations because its intuitive explanation is not always straightforward. However, let me now explain convolution intuitively so you can visualize what happens step by step. To explain convolution intuitively, I have generated a signal and a kernel. This is our signal, represented by samples that are very close to each other, giving it a high resolution. I have also intentionally created the kernel in a simple and clear form to make it easier to understand the concept of the kernel and its flipped version. This is our original signal, which we will call x1 of n, and this is our kernel, which we will call x2 of n. I will now explain each step of convolution using this illustration so that we can clearly understand the numerical example later. Here, you can see both the original kernel and its flipped version. The flipping is done like this. Suppose this vertex, where the 90-degree angle is formed, represents 0, and the samples on the right side are positive. After flipping, all the positive samples become negative because 0 stays in its original position, while the positive samples move to the left and become negative. The concept of flipping is similar to closing a book. Imagine a book open at the center. The right page represents the positive side, and the left page represents the negative side. When you close the book, the right page folds over to the left. This is the same idea as flipping the kernel. If the kernel originally had a value of positive 3 on the right, after flipping, it becomes negative 3 on the left. So, this process is called flipping or folding of the kernel. We can also call it reflection. This step is only applied to x2 of n, the kernel. The first step of convolution is therefore flipping the kernel, and it is performed only once at the beginning of the process. After flipping, we begin the convolution by placing this flipped kernel over the signal. Now, the flipped kernel is positioned so that its last sample overlaps with the first sample of the signal. At this point, only one sample of the kernel overlaps with one sample of the signal. If you remember from the convolution equation, the process starts when k equals 0. The variable k represents the amount of shift. So when k equals 0, there is no shift. The flipped kernel is just placed over the signal without moving it. The next step is multiplication and addition. Since only one sample overlaps, we multiply this single pair of samples. For example, if the value of the overlapping kernel sample is 3 and the value of the overlapping signal sample is 2, their product is 3 times 2, which equals 6. Because there is only one multiplication, the addition result is also 6. Multiplication and addition in discrete-time convolution are performed sample by sample. Next, when k equals 1, it means we shift the flipped kernel one sample to the right. Now more samples overlap between the kernel and the signal. Suppose there are 3 overlapping samples. We multiply each overlapping pair. If the values are 2 and 2, the product is 4. If they are 3 and 2, the product is 6. And if they are 1 and 1, the product is 1. Then we add all these products. 1 plus 4 plus 6 equals 11. This value 11 represents 1 point in the convolution result. Do not worry if the multiplication and addition steps seem unclear at this point. This is just the intuitive explanation, and we will make it concrete with a numerical example shortly. Now, when k equals 2, we shift the flipped kernel another step to the right, and again multiply the overlapping samples of the kernel and the signal. In this way, we start from the first position and continue sliding the flipped kernel one sample at a time over the entire signal. At each step, we perform multiplication of the overlapping samples and add the results to get the convolution value for that position. As k increases, the kernel continues to move across the signal. When k equals n-2, we reach the second to last shift. According to the equation, the last shift occurs when k equals n-1. At this stage, the first sample of the kernel overlaps with the last sample of the signal. If you compare the first and last positions, initially the last sample of the kernel overlapped with the first sample of the signal, and finally the first sample of the kernel overlaps with the last sample of the signal. So, throughout the process, the flipped kernel slides completely over the signal from start to end. During each shift, we multiply the kernel and the signal samples, add the results, and record the output. This is the intuitive explanation of convolution. In summary, convolution involves 2 signals, x1 of n and x2 of n. We flip x2 of n, shift it gradually over x1 of n, and at each shift, we multiply the overlapping samples and add them to compute the convolution result.